Can you put her on silent shoot?
No.
You don't want to encourage.
Mm-mm.
Know a thing or two because we've seen the thing too.
All right, y'all. My clock said 8 o'clock. I just got a text from Patty Bentley, and she was apologizing for not getting here, but they were at the emergency room till 1 o'clock last night. Patty has done an amazing job taking care of her husband, and he's y'all know he's paralyzed from a car wreck, and he's a big old boy, and I don't know how in the world Patty gets him in and out, but if we could think a little extra about Patty and her husband this morning, we might ought to. Clay, would you say a blessing for this grand? What are you? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bow with me, if you will. Our dear Heavenly Father, Lord, right now we lift up a friend. Lord, I pray that you'll be with Patty right now as she attends to her husband. Lord, I pray that you'll give her strength. Lord, I pray that you'll give her peace and give her comfort in a trying time. Lord, I pray for her husband and for the physicians that are looking after him. Lord, I pray that you'll make her walk today easier. Lord, I pray for us as we look at the issues that are about to face us, and grant us wisdom. Lord, as we are in southern part of the state, we'll be planting corn in just a little bit. And some have started planting some vegetables. As we begin this growing season, I pray that you'll grant safety. And I pray that above all, that you will receive honor and glory and praise from what we do and what we say. In your name I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Clay. Y'all didn't get down to but about 30-something, right, Dominic?
What about peaches?
I don't know. Robert's not here. I didn't think he was going to be here. We hope the peach blooms survive, and maybe more so in middle Georgia than they did up north Georgia. But I know a lot of folks were covering up strawberries and trying to protect them with blankets. You can't do that with peach trees. But I hope this is the last cold snap we're going to have. But we all got to remember that the good Lord knows what he's doing. We ain't got control over it, and we just got to deal with what it is. That's the nature of what farmers do for a living. So anyway, without anything else, we appreciate y'all getting here on what Miss Susan called a holiday at 8 o'clock in the morning. We got a couple of bills. I went on and put another one on just so we wouldn't have to listen to Vance all day. But the first thing we got to do with House Bill 302 is get it off the table. So if anybody's got a motion to get it off the table, got a motion second. Motion second to remove House Bill 302 from the table. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Y'all want a hand vote? All in favor, raise your hand to get it off the table. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Matt, where you at? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Is that right? 11. All right, all opposed to getting it off the table? 1, 2, 3, 4. That satisfy y'all?
Oh, I think we had 5.
Rick, I didn't see Rick. Y'all wanna do that again, I'm sorry. Somebody else count besides me.
Rick's hand was up in sky.
Everybody opposed to taking it off the table, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is that right? All right, everybody in favor of taking it off the table? If you want it off, if you wanna deal with it today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Y'all satisfied with that? All right, what we gonna do is, in an effort to not get fussed at about not giving folks a chance to say something, if you have not commented on this bill over the last 3 meetings we've had on it, if you want to comment on it briefly, come right there, Winfrey, swing that mic around where they can get right there. And we will be happy to listen to you. Mark, you want to talk? Yes, sir. All right. Lee's got a timer up here for a couple of minutes.
That'll be more than sufficient. My name's Mark Woodall. I'm the legislative chair for the Sierra Club here in Georgia. We've got about 50,000 members and supporters. We are for local control. We believe that's what the local government's for, health, safety, and protecting the environment. So we very much oppose House Bill 302.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
Good morning, Megan Middleton with the City of Atlanta. I apologize for not being able to speak at some of the other meetings, although I did attend.
That's okay.
We also are for local control, specifically for Atlanta on this bill. We've worked over a year with our constituents throughout the city. We had dozens of meetings in all parts of the city, met with them, nighttime meetings, daytime meetings, and after all of that, they came together with our design plan, which was just recently passed by City Council in January. So this is something that we've had a lot of input from our citizens, and this bill would then change a lot of that. So, you know, these citizens want to keep their neighborhoods in the design that they are. That helps their property values. That helps going forward. People move into these neighborhoods expecting them to stay a certain way. So this is, you know, some of our concerns. So I thank the committee.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? Gentleman from Pine Mountain, you want to wrap up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate y'all bearing with me all this time and let me come back for the third time. You know, we've heard a lot about local control, and I guess the way I look at that and the way the bill's drawn now, we went back and made a couple amendments. We put zoning back just as it was in the very beginning. We're not touching zoning. And never were touching zoning. We were just trying to clarify, but we put it back. And we also created the overlay districts, which you can go in and lay out that overlay district, have the people in that area of the overlay sign the petition. If you have 50% plus one, they do what they want to do in that district. We didn't touch HOAs or historical. But I think just for me, the concept of local control, yes, we do. And I was a local official back in the 80s in Harris County and local control. But then I go one step further. After a citizen, a taxpayer of the state of Georgia, has abided by the zoning ordinances, abide by the building codes, I think they should have local control over what color their house is, the way their rooms are laid out, how many windows they have on the side of the house. To me, that's ultimate local control right at the citizen level. And they abide by all the building codes, and they abide by all the zoning ordinances. And they're a tax-paying citizen. To me, that's really local control. So I appreciate your consideration. Just a concept that I had and wanted to throw it out, and I appreciate each and every one of you on the committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I don't know if this is a question or a comment, but from the committee, if they want to say anything. Scott, are you for? Sure. Go ahead.
Yesterday, thank you, Representative Smith. I had asked you a couple of questions yesterday. I haven't heard the answer yet. In the first one, was what happens if there are multiple property owners for a single parcel? How is that treated?
I guess, as I stated yesterday, I'd have to go to somebody legal that's a lawyer in the room and ask them how that would be treated.
Okay, so we still don't have an answer from yesterday on that?
My answer would be not a legal answer. If they're all property owners, they would each have a vote.
I also asked about duplexes. Do we have an answer for that?
No, other than the property owner of the duplex, the property itself.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Y'all have heard me before. I haven't changed my mind at all. And, you know, I'm just so disturbed by this, y'all. Having been in local government for 12 years, I have been there. I have been from a little city that was absolutely pitiful and dying and dreadful looking to having those guidelines, which were very reasonable, that our local government voted for. See, it makes such a difference in my little city of Monticello. And I've also seen what has happened in Madison, Thomasville, Gainesville, cities around the state, Jackson. Folks in my area are just, I mean, they are so upset by this. I just get calls and texts and emails about, please don't let this bill pass. I'm just asking y'all, if in that local control, let's let local folks look after local. And let's don't do anything that would really have a detrimental effect on the communities in our state, especially the rural communities that just need help so desperately. Thank you.
Go ahead. I'm seven. That's all right. Thank you. I have to voice my opinion also. This is not a good bill. This needs to be local control. 2 points that I want to make is local control. We're going to be facing some legislation in the next year, and I think we all know local is where it's best determined. We need to make sure that that's upheld. We talked about property rights. I'm a property owner too. My rights need to be protected. I'm in a small community. Everybody knows Thomasville. Okay, we have our own design plan too. The community has come together. We worked, we put what we wanted, and it was very contentious. Trust me, everybody voiced their opinion, but that's what local control is about. We have our rights. I'm a property owner. The people in our community work together to come up with our plan. That's our plan. Atlanta has no business telling us what to do and how to build a house, where to put windows, what we can't. We have the right in our community to determine what we want in our community, and I think this is bad legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I promise I'm going to try to be brief, but it is complicated because when you start talking about local control, there are hundreds of examples of where legislators will bring pay increases for mayors and city commissions or school boards. We get to decide. I'm sure that if one of the school board members brought Representative or Chairman Taylor a pay increase of $20,000, she'd say no. And the reason she would say no is because we get to decide. So it is very complicated when you start delineating or trying to differentiate where local control has limits and then the state legislature gets to decide. But then you bring into that conversation the process. One of the things that I have very strong feelings about is the process of how we do all of this. And Representative Smith is really just only a part of the way through this process. I think what he's asking this committee to consider is to allow him to continue to move this and continue the conversation about what is the best way to move forward. If he were able to get a favorable vote in this committee to continue that process, that does not mean that this bill becomes law. There's still a pretty rigorous conversation that happens in a rules committee to try to get it to the floor, and then there is a huge debate. And so what I've tried to consider in this is that this is the Agriculture and Consumer Affairs Committee, and we get to just be one more part of the conversation of a much more complicated discussion that will happen on the floor if he's even able to make it there. I don't, and this is just Dominic. I don't see enough encumbrance or burden on the locals in this because it is not related to any of the building codes. It's not related to any of the structural integrity, the safety. It is just kind of about telling a taxpayer that you don't have to use a certain type of shingle, or you don't have to have a certain facade or decoration on there, because all of that stuff is very expensive. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll kind of end with this. My hopes are that the committee would consider at least allowing Representative Smith to continue to try to move this through the process. Now, listen, I'm not saying that you have to, or I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that for these bills to really get all of the attention that perhaps, or the will of the entire body, it is fair to allow someone to get a vote of the entire House. And so, again, I appreciate just a few minutes, Mr. Chairman, and I wasn't picking on Chairman Taylor, because I'm just saying we do have a lot of, we get to have a say here. If we're not going to take a say on anything local in nature, we could probably just kind of do away with that in some law. Somebody could drop a bill and say, if it's local, let's just never have a say and let them have pay raises when they want, and let them have ordinances when they want, and those kind of things. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dominic. Number 7.
That's me again. As far as pay raises, we have delegations for each county, and I'm sure yours have the same thing. You have rules. If somebody wants a pay raise, their local board's going to have to pass it publicly, advertise it before I'm going to pass it on. So you set and establish those rules. I don't see that quite in the same light. But again, by the same token, there's more to it. I will give you an example of how local controls it. In my neighborhood, they wanted to take 5 acres and put 50 houses in it. And our neighborhood said, I don't think so. We don't want any zero lot line, 900 square foot homes. And we went to the zoning, and we went to the city, discussed it, and guess what? We now have 12 homes in that area. So it is a much better deal to have your local people making those decisions. If this bill was in place, I would have a whole bunch of little duplex small houses, and it wouldn't fit our neighborhood. But the person owned the land, and they wanted to develop it, and they were going to get made some money, but it would have ruined the neighborhood. This is what concerns me about this bill. Thank you.
I think he's going to address that.
I get it, it's zoning, and we had to fight through the local folks that wanted it, but the determination, the decision was made locally, and our city council listened to us when we came.
Can I say something, Mr. Chairman? And I hear you, but this bill doesn't have anything to do with zoning. The cities and counties, the local government, they have all the setbacks, the buffer zones, the density. They control all that. This bill only controls aesthetics of the home. Has nothing to do with zoning, nothing to do with building ordinances. And I hear you, but this bill wouldn't affect the example.
Doesn't the overlay district, though, kind of answer some of the questions about the locals being able to have a say?
Oh, yeah, they can designate any area they'd like. All they have to do is ask the people of that area, and they get 50% plus 1, and then they have an overlay district.
All right, 4.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I genuinely have appreciation for Representative Dominic's Lurikia's appreciation for the process. Committees are for vetting legislation. How many people here in this committee can definitively explain what this bill does with the overlay and the 50% plus 1? Is there anybody that can answer the question, how many property owners does it take if there are 4 or 5 people that own one parcel? Anybody? The process is for us as a subcommittee or the committee to vet and answer that question before it moves on. If we send a piece of legislation out that we don't know the answer to, then we're not acting responsibly. That's my opinion.
Who is 4? Oh, no, I did 4. Excuse me, 1. I'm sorry. I hit my back. Which one, huh?
Witness to.
Okay. So we ain't doing one. Y'all
No,
mountain
we
folks,
we couldn't get this one light up.
y'all mountain folks.
You're
are
trying to
getting us
turn me
messed up.
off. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of comments I have on this one. I agree with the two ladies. I guess you know that, and because
does not disturb mine.
huh?
I don't have the same view as he does.
That's all right. We rarely.
No, I'm just saying that.
And you know, I guess when I've passed bills that imposed our will over the state. I've done that, and it's a serious business, and I think it should be rare. And there were constitutional issues at stake when we did that. And in this issue, it's not, and we can vote them out. I think in my community, if somebody came up and wanted to have a design standard or something like that, we're fighting in a downtown city of Jasper issue right now. They're probably going to lose city council members over this thing, but that's okay. That's the way it ought to be. And I don't want to see, I guess, and that's a local issue. It's not a constitutional issue like when we have imposed our will over the state. And these gentlemen will tell you we fought tooth and nail doing that. And I will add to Dominic, that's our committee's job. We get to decide. We are the filter. As chairman, Mr. Chairman, we filter a lot of bills and that don't go to the floor for discussion. It's our responsibility to do a good job with that. And I think that's not a reason just because somebody wants it that it should go to the floor. It's our job to be the filter and the committee to do their job in a serious way of being the filter. And I thank you.
All right, thank you, Rick. Number 6, that'd be you, Miss Susan. Oh, Jan, okay. Y'all teaming up on me over there.
Okay. I've said most of what I needed to say before, but I'll just say again, in my experience with 5 years as a city council person and 10 as a county commissioner, that most of the time the aesthetics, if that's the big issue, are decided by the developer. A developer buys up a big tract of land and they decide what price range the homes need to be. They decide how those homes need to look and what kind of people they're trying to attract. And the other side of that coin, we're working really hard in Statesboro to develop what we're calling the Blue Mile from the gates of the college to downtown area. And there is a district now that we're looking at, and the developers that are going to be involved in that are definitely setting the aesthetics and how that looks and what kind of people, what kind of retail we're trying to attract. And there'll be some city dwelling units there. It's going to a park. That's what we do on the local level, and annually, on an annual basis, all of our community leaders, our chamber folks, our development authority, some folks from that represent realtors and builders and developers get together and talk about how we want our community to look, and that is best decided on the local level. And I see nothing wrong with continuing this discussion. If there's some glaring issues out there that we're adamant that everyone should be allowed to use, whether it's wood or concrete or vinyl siding or whatever, maybe that's something we could study further. But if we're not tampering with zoning, we're not tampering with historic districts, I think that we do not need to overlook our local governments because they are in the best positions to make those decisions, and if they're not making the right decisions, our local folks will take notice and they will be voted out of office. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Number 2, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick comment, then at the proper time I'd like to make a motion, but several members that's here today are also members of the Rural Development Council, and many of the places we went to, one of the issues everybody had was affordable housing. I don't remember if you remember Toccoa. They talked about they had all these jobs, but nobody to fill them because they didn't have housing that was affordable that people could afford in the area. They have to shut down a business, a restaurant in the afternoon because they didn't have workers to show up. They just didn't have affordable housing for people. And then what really hit home with me, I guess, in our subcommittee meeting the other day, the gentleman from Richmond Hill, he talked about the affordable housing, basically in Richmond Hill, Bryan County, they have priced the ones that teach us, the ones that protect us, the ones that serve us, the military people out of being able to afford a house. So to me, I mean, that's what it gets down to is affordable housing, and I'd like to make a motion at the proper time.
All right, let me get two more, and then we're gonna get out of this. Who's 10? Winfrey?
Mr. Chairman, I was always being on the committee, if there is a question, and so we don't send a piece of legislation forward without there being a clear understanding of what it is that we're doing. I always like to try to at least attempt to address the representative's concern. I'm getting older. When I look at you, I can't call your name.
That'd be Turner.
Oh, you're the terrorist, aren't you? No, I'm sorry. But he did say notices provided to all property owners within the proposed overlay district. And that was a very valid point. Who votes? If 10 people own a parcel of property, do we get 10 votes from that parcel? For the sake of clarity, I would say that for the parcel, each parcel of property would get a vote. I don't know, that might be throwing some confusion in there, but if you don't address it now, you definitely will be addressing it on the floor.
Are you moving that?
With the author's consent.
I'd like to ask Legislative Council, I don't think overlay districts are something new. Does he have any input? I'd leave that up to the chairman.
I'll tell you what, let me get back to, I'm scared to not give Miss Susan.
And what I want to say concerns overlay districts, because we keep hearing overlay, we'll just establish an overlay district. Folks, it ain't easy. I have worked on those. Small cities are not going to know how to do it. They're not going to be able to afford to do it. It is not an easy process. This bill is just, it's not what we need to do. Y'all think about this, please.
All right, I think what we got to do to get to you is to see if we even gonna get to where we need to be. John, you want to make a motion?
Make a motion to pass.
Is there a second? Second. All right, now, there's a motion and a pass, and if there's any discussion on it now, Winford.
With the owner's consent, with the author's consent, I would like to propose an amendment that defines who the property owners are, and the property owners will be defined as those parcels, the owners of the parcels of property within the overlay district. That is, if you have 10 people who owns one parcel of property, that parcel gets one vote.
Where you gonna put that at? You talking about down on line 57?
I think so. I think that was the one Representative Spencer was referring to.
And
he said he was Spencer. I mean,
Winford, instead of you putting the language in because you can't read Scott's cup, can I let lead council figure out where to put what you want to say?
That would be good, Mr. Chairman.
that in there.
I thought it was to try to have a decision on what they want to build. If they didn't want to build a house with brick, they could put siding on it.
That's what essentially.
It was a house.
It is.
I didn't know it was about downtown, and
It doesn't interfere with commercial or
that's
retail.
what I thought.
All right, Winfred,
But
Yes,
some
sir.
people want to
lead
overlay it
council
because they don't want to disturb
says, basically, if the parcel is owned by one somebody, that's the parcel vote.
Right.
If it's owned by two people, then they decide. If it's owned by more than two, then it's a majority of the people that own it that decide how the parcel gets a vote. Is that how you want it?
The council kind of read my mind. Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Good God, this thing looks like a flashing Christmas tree up here.
Oh, Lord.
And I wasn't paying attention to who mashed what first. Darlene, is that you?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to know what happens if a developer has bought that lot and has it subdivided into 50 lots. Does he get 50 votes?
No.
But it's a lot, and he owns every one of those lots that's been subdivided. He would get a vote for every lot.
Depends on if it's zoned for that.
Nothing wrong with that? Yeah, there
No, I said
is.
if it's not zoned for that.
Yeah.
It hadn't
if-
been
it-
zoned for 50 lots.
Yeah.
Well,
But sometimes they buy it and subdivide it, and they've already got it subdivided, but they haven't developed it yet.
But if it's subdivided, wouldn't it be sold to an individual? I mean,
They're going to eventually
he
sell the
sells it,
lots. It's
one
his.
parcel.
No, if he's already divided it up and had it, when you develop it, you do. Thank you.
All right, is it 6 next? Who's 6?
Me.
Okay.
To Representative Corbett's remarks about Bryan County, Bryan County is a unique county. They're divided. There is North Bryan County, which I represent, and there's South. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I can hear you now.
Oh, okay, we can hear me now. Okay. Bryan County is a unique county. There's North Bryan County, there's South Bryan County. They are split in the middle with Fort Stewart. They love their military people. I can speak for North Bryan, that's the group I represent. They have a very active city council. They're really on top of the way they want their historic looking little town of Pembroke to look like. They go the extra mile. They've worked with DCA on more than one occasion, and they have several affordable housing units, complexes in North Bryan County. I understand that a lot of people are upset, but I'll tell you another thing that's unique about those two counties. They don't often agree because North Bryan, that I represent, is more of a rural type area. South Bryan is more like a city. You know, it's more connected to Savannah, but it does have historic areas in it. As stringent as this may sound to all of us, they have worked on this together and they've agreed on this. This is what they want. So I do say that unless someone could show me some numbers, there is affordable housing in North Bryan, and I would feel pretty confident that they have it in South Bryan too. Now, I did bring up a point before, and they've spoken to this point in comments that South Bryan has, they're in a high wind zone area because of hurricanes that come through, and they're pretty devastating. So they have asked that, they put in their ordinance that they will not accept vinyl siding because it blows off easily. But anyway, that's a decision they made. I have vinyl siding, and the only problem I have with it is having my husband knock holes in it when he's cutting the grass because he forgets to turn the lawnmower the other way. But I'm not in a high wind area, and it's not going to all be blown away in a heartbeat. So we could make it more affordable on the front side, but then, you know, if high winds come, and they do come in that South Bryan area, it's going to rip that off. And I'm not real knowledgeable about all the building supplies, but I believe they said Hardy Plank is not that much more expensive. There's a city council woman, and she's reminded me that it's not that much more expensive. You never like to hear of a building material that, you know, you're prohibiting someone to use, but there are reasons. And thank you for your time.
I will tell you, Hardy Plank's a pain to put up.
And I'll tell you, it's a lot more expensive.
Bam.
Yes, and just to that, and I understand I'm not from Bryan County and Miss Jan's area, but I've got an article here from FEMA. It talks about siding installation in high wind regions and the tests that they've done, and it provides a basic design and installation tips for various types of siding that'll enhance wind resistance in the high wind areas. So that's a FEMA report right there that I have. Could be. I was just talking about the vinyl. Yes, ma'am.
All right, 4.
If at the appropriate time, Mr. Chairman, are we taking up discussion on the amendment just yet?
We're trying to figure it out, yeah.
Okay. When it's actually ready, I have some questions about how it would actually work. Is an appropriate
Go
time
ahead.
at this point?
Well, that's what we're trying
To
to figure out.
Representative
Follow
Taylor's point about subdivided lots or parcels in that case. Also, what happens if somebody owns a third of an acre and somebody owns 400 acres? Are we going to treat those two parcels the same? Are they going to have an equal voice in this when the value of the 400-acre parcel is far more than the third of an acre?
I don't
I
have an
think, I
answer.
think what we're getting at here is that the overlay language that was added to the bill is problematic. Even if we try to fix it here, it continues to have other questions that are hard to answer.
I will tell you that if I own 400 acres and the city came in trying to tell me what I was gonna build on that 400 acres that I'm paying tax on, my tax is way more important than what a third of an acre is.
Well, that's kind of the point there,
Yeah,
sir.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I don't have an answer,
Thank you.
and I don't know that our lawyer does. I will tell you what he told me that according to answering Darlene's question is, yes, that's right. After it is approved by the county, subdivided with plats, right? All right, Winfrey, good Lord.
He don't even tell him on it.
I would err on the side of sticking with each owner having a vote. And that is, if you own the subdivision and you have this many lots, you have this many opportunities to have to participate in the building of this particular property. He owns more of the property in the neighborhood, so he has a better position. And there is no way that you're going to make it completely fair for everybody. But what we're looking at from here is this. The primary purpose is that we want to have people to have more individual control on what it is they can, how they can build their houses or how they can renovate their properties. Now, we can get into the weeds of saying that a person with 400 acres should have a more say-so in a voting perspective, voting, than somebody with a third of an acre. Because it depends on what you put on the third of the acre. You could put the capital, well, maybe an acre. You can put the whole capital there. And in as much as it is voting, in the strictest sense, it doesn't matter how much property you own. On the first Tuesday followed by the first Monday in November, on even number years, everybody votes a vote. So if you own 400 acres in the community, you're gonna have a lot more influence from the beginning because you own 400 acres. But when it comes right straight down to the vote, it's the people of the community who should decide what their community looks like. that is in the overlay districts. And this becomes a very, very extreme method process that we are addressing. We basically do want to address your concern, and in vetting it in the committee, we'll do the best that we absolutely can to address everybody's concerns. But there's not going to be any perfection. So that would be where my motion would lie, Mr. Chairman.
So what are you making a motion?
Yes,
Or
sir.
an amendment?
The amendment. Every person who owns a parcel in that community will have a vote on whatever we do in the overlay district.
Every
If
person or every parcel?
And if you own multiple parcels, then you get multiple votes.
Okay. So that'd be by the parcel, really?
Yes, sir. It's really by
Okay.
parcel. Can you do that?
Whatever they say, whatever the lawyer says.
All right, lead council says that if we do it by parcel, then you have to determine how that parcel votes if it has multiple owners. And that needs to be written in.
Okay. Then the owners of that parcel will have to decide. So if it's one, there is one vote. If there is two, if one of them, if there's two people who own the parcel, then if one of them votes yes and the other one votes no, then their vote get canceled out because they can't decide. If they can't decide, then they can't vote. Then their vote is sort of like no. That's not problem. Let me show you why it's not problematic. The parcel owners have to decide, and if they cannot decide, then they can't vote.
And that's still a vote under this system, because you have to reach a 50% plus one of parcel owners in that case, the parcels, and then you still have the inequity of 400. Yeah.
That's a no vote. That's a no vote.
So that's problematic for a lot of different reasons, because you could have different property owners in that same parcel trying to protect the value of that property, and the others don't really care. I mean, that's one part of the problem, but the way this is laid out with the 50% plus one threshold having to be achieved in order to approve the overlay, you would almost have to reverse it in order for it to be fair. You'd have to have 50% plus one people want or to say that they don't want the overlay. And even then, that becomes problematic because of the 40 parcels that get divided up. And there's still the inequity between the third of an acre property owner and the 400-acre property owner. And so you're creating a system that is completely unfair. And you have local elections today. And I would challenge you to say that the local elections today and the current process would be superior to what you're proposing.
Mr. Chairman, could I make a comment? When there's an election today, people take office if they receive 50% of vote plus one. I mean,
Those who don't
everybody
vote.
gets a chance to vote. My wife cancels my vote out a lot of times.
That's based
We
upon
both got a chance.
participation.
We both got a chance to vote.
Right.
And what's the difference in that vote and this vote? And capital outlay districts, is this a brand new subject matter? Overlay districts, is this a brand new subject matter? Or have there been overlay districts created in Georgia before? Why can't we look at how those are created and use the laws that are on the books for them?
So to answer that question directly, the difference between an election and this process is that it's 50% plus one of the people who participate. If you do not participate in this, you're counted as a no vote. And that's completely different. That would be the equivalent would be in an election, all the people who didn't vote would be counted as a vote against you. And that's, I mean, when we have 65% participation rates in elections, that's going to kill you.
Would everybody agree that there are overlay districts now? Are there overlay districts in the state of Georgia now?
Not that take away local control for these types of things. No.
I
sir.
just asked a question, are there overlay districts in the state of Georgia? That's a pretty simple question. Are there, or is this the first one that's ever been talked about, an overlay district?
I don't know the answer to your question. However, I would be able to find out within 24 hours. And secondly, I think it's kind of, I don't think it relates to what we're talking about here, because what you're talking about is a brand new subject matter, and that you're taking an overlay district for a new purpose, which is to take away local control of these types of decisions. That is a new concept.
Last comment. Yesterday we had a pretty good debate on a bill on the floor of the House, and it had to do with cannabis oil. Was that bill amended on the floor of the House?
Yes, it was.
The perfection process continues.
My concern with that is I asked questions 24 hours ago that weren't answered, and and there was seemingly no effort to try to answer them. And so if the concerns that we're addressing here, we had a full day to try to get them addressed, and they weren't. And now we're in this committee trying to figure it out on the fly. I'm not comfortable with that.
Well, Mr. Turner.
Thank you, Representative Dukes.
Well, now you was one who wanted to be Jason, but listen, you asked it on the fly. We are trying to address it here, and absolutely, if an individual does not have the wherewithal or the decision or the will to go and vote on something that is going to affect his property, or the people that are for the change, if they don't get them to the polls and vote, then you don't win. You have to have 50% plus one.
Of the people who participate. That's what elections are.
No.
Yes, sir.
But
that's how elections work, Representative Dukes.
Okay, I never interrupted you. I listened to you. This is not a political election. We're not running people for office. That election has been defined. This election will be defined by a majority of the people who own property to vote in the affirmative that they want to change a particular item in the overlay district. If you don't vote in the affirmative to change, and you don't have 50% plus one, then there will be no changes. Does that clear it up for you?
No, sir, it actually doesn't, but that's okay.
Elections conducted, are we going to now bring in the electoral process and the county's going to have to pay for elections? Or are we going to meet in the neighborhood bar and sit around a table and those that show up vote on it?
That's going to be local control.
Petition.
All right, hold on. Will y'all listen to lead counsel and see how he's got it, he and David's got it figured out?
Okay.
So I would be changing lines 55 through 58, actually 56 through 58. And the idea would be, right now, that reads signatures of a majority of the property owners. And that would be changed to say signatures of, first, in the case of a parcel with one owner, the signature of that owner. 2, in the case of a parcel with two owners, signatures of both owners. And then 3, in the case of a parcel with more than 2 owners, signatures of a majority of the owners. And then each parcel would get 1 vote based on that scheme, and a majority of the parcels would make the determination as to whether the overlay would be allowed.
I think he went to the restroom, Mr. Chairman.
Take a vote.
You know, this is more complicated than that hemp bill, ain't it, John? All right, do y'all understand what he's talking about? And is Winfrey making that in a motion or what? I'm lost on.
Matthew's gonna take his place.
You know, at the risk of kicking over a whole nother ant bed, I had a kind of high-ranking member of that other chamber on the backside of the Capitol ask me last night, does the Constitution of the state of Georgia give local governments the authority to tell people how they can do their houses and what color to paint them? And I didn't know the answer. That, you know, all of this may be hours and hours spent for nothing and it's unconstitutional. I don't know. But that's something you need to think about.
So he read
If that is an open question, I'd ask for an official opinion on what's called council prior.
I don't know. That's right. I said at the risk. I think the Attorney General has made a comment on that. But anyway, go ahead, Winfrey.
I'm sorry. Could you read that once again for me?
Yes. So, thanks. Lines 56 to 58 would be changed. Right now, they read that an overlay district could proceed with the signatures of a majority of the property owners. And I would change that, and I'm going to word it a little bit differently this time because I had more time to think about it, to say with the approval of a majority of the affected parcels, and as to each parcel, whether or not it approves of the overlay would be determined as follows. If the parcel has one owner, that owner determines how the parcel votes. If the parcel has two owners, both must agree on how the parcel votes. And if the parcel has more than two owners, a majority of those owners must agree on how the parcel, whether the parcel approves of the overlay or not.
Excuse me. Mr. Chairman,
let me get to first. This thing's been flashing forever. Okay.
But a developer has that power already, pretty much to kind of decide based on his subdivision regulations. As a developer, what I'm trying to do is to make sure that you can't tell me that I can't use vinyl siding or that I can't use a concrete slab.
Are you moving?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if it's appropriate, I make the motion to table.
He's checking something.
Is that you whispering, Matthew? Is this Jeopardy? Was that you going Jeopardy? This is a Jeopardy question. If Alex Trebek walks in, I believe him.
I'm out of here.
All right, we're trying to figure out parliamentary procedure. Now we got it figured out. Winford, are you making a motion to do what he's talking about?
Absolutely.
All right, is there a second to Winford's motion?
Second.
All right, motion and second to do the partial overlay vote like leg council said. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. Good God. All right, all in favor raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is that right? 8, okay.
They told me I only vote if they all needed it.
You just take care of the oysters. All right, all opposed to Winford's motion? What is it? 8 in favor, 7 opposed. All right, 8 in favor, 7 opposed. Winford motion carries. Now, I'm trying to get Robert's rules straightened out. You made a motion to table.
Yes, sir.
That takes precedent, right?
If you recognize.
If I recognize it.
Now you gotta be boss for a minute.
There is a motion on the floor, right? And a second.
That's on the amendment, sir?
No, the amendment has passed.
Okay. Is the motion, point of order, is the motion that you pass? Is that what we're
That's what John's motion is do pass. All right, everybody understand where we are?
No, sir, I don't.
Winford amendment passed with all this complicated language up here. Now we are back to the original motion, which was John's, is a do pass, as amended.
What about Scott's?
That's what I'm trying to get figured out here with what a table motion does. Mm.
Mr. Chairman, if it would help, I had intended to move the table this bill as well. If you prefer to recognize me instead
Go ahead.
Representative Smith, I think you can see pretty clearly how this is going. Would you mind recommending to the chairman what you would prefer? I mean, it's a tight spot to be in with the motion. Do you want to move forward with a vote? Because if you do, taking into account those consequences, or would you go with Representative Turner in a motion to table?
And I appreciate that. And I think after 3 times and the discussion's been great debate, let's just go ahead and make the decision. Let's move forward and take a vote and see where it goes, because why delay something when we got no better time than the present, I think.
That actually was my thinking. We have met 3 times on this thing, hours and hours. I know in 15 years since I've been sitting here, we ain't ever had this much discussion on a bill. John, your motion's on the floor, right? Who seconded it? Well, y'all got that down? Yeah. Okay. All right, we are on John's motion to do pass as amended by Winford with the language that Leg Council's got. All in favor say aye. Aye. I should have took a hand vote. All opposed, no. No. All in favor raise your hand. It better not be a tie. All opposed, no. I can't until that's why I say it better not be a tie. You got what?
7 on no, 9 on yes, 9 yes.
All right, 9 yes, 7 no. Do pass. Thank you,
Thank you,
Van.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank y'all for all the input and discussion on this. All right, for the committee leads, we got one more bill. Is Carla here? Carla, come up here and sit right here, please. Can you? All right, committee members, for years. Yes, sir.
For years.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
I know there's something I need to notify the chair about.
I think,
I just need to tell you that I plan to do
I
that.
think, I think what you gotta do is write a minority report, and we'll take care of it. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's your privilege and your right, and we happy with it. For years, Representative Drenner has been concerned about animals riding in the back of a truck, and she has narrowed it down to where a cow dog on a dirt road in Pavo don't count. So, Representative Drenner.
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to get caught in your all's debate that I was just privileged to listen to. I want you to think for a second, aside from Representative Wilson, most of you live outside of 285, right? All of you live outside of 285? I do, and I'm glad. Is a totally different environment outside of 285. Mr. Chairman, can I have a conversation with you all for a second before we get into the nuances of the bill? How many of you have ever hit an animal? So when you hit the animal, what was your instinct? Did you swerve? Did you try to brake? What did you do? You just you did both. So if you swerve where you live, you might go into a lane of oncoming traffic. I wasn't prepared for that. So I'm trying to make a point that here in the metropolitan area, I have 4 exits off of 285. So I am on 285 a lot. Traffic, there's 2 million cars a day that are on 285. That's a huge number of people. 285 is the most dangerous interstate in the country. So when you come into the city, if you're like me, I try not to get on the freeway because of the traffic. So this bill is all about the experience of being on the freeway and having someone with a dog in the back of a pickup truck going 80 miles an hour, slamming on their brakes, and what's the dog do? The dog first goes up in the air, goes forward, hits the cab, bounces up, and everybody around that truck has to make a decision at that moment. Do I swerve or do I brake? and I can tell you from experience because this happened to me, and that's why I'm bringing this issue. I swerved. When I swerved, all the cars around me, all 6 lanes, you know what they did? They braked at 80 miles an hour. So I was very fortunate that people stopped and I didn't get hit. I had 2 of my kids in the car. And that person with that dog didn't fall out of the truck. It just fell back in, right? So that's the reason for the bill, is all it says, if you look on lines 12 through 23 or 22, is that if you are driving on 285 or within the perimeter, that you have to have your animals secured. Now, you wouldn't put your horse in the back of a truck or and put it on 285? There's no moving violations. It's not a criminal act. And if you look on the very back page, it has a $15 fine. Now, $15 is to buy a cage. It's not about the dog. It's about the fact that our highways in the metropolitan area continue to increase in congestion. Drivers are not mindful, and anything we can do to decrease the $2.5 billion a year that are spent on vehicle accidents, I think would be a good thing. So that's the reason behind the bill. I have been, as Chairman McCall said, this is the 4th time I've introduced it. Every time it gets a little better. Because my goal was not to impact your communities. It was just to prevent a problem in the metropolitan area. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Representative Joyner, I thought the $15 was for not having the seatbelt on. That's what Speaker Murphy capped the $15 seatbelt fine at when we supposedly saved everybody's lives. Number 7.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. Since this is a federal highway, they're the interstate, do we have the authority to do this on an interstate? That was my question. Making sure we have the authority to do this on an interstate. So it works, so this would work? But that's everywhere. So this is signaling just those federal highways. Do we have the authority? That was my only thing. I like it. It's not a bad thing, but we do have the authority. Thank you.
Number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, I would dearly love to know which portions of I-85 that you cover. I've not seen a single place I could go 80 miles an hour on 285. I'm generally in the 8 to 10 mile an hour range. But a more serious question on line 18, in terms of the cross tethering of the animal to the vehicle, had you given any thought to, instead of a cross tether, just have an animal attached? And I know it doesn't keep, but it will keep the animal inside at least, or pretty close to the vehicle, where the cross tethering is a little additional extra compliance issue for someone that might have have the dog in the back fixing to go from Henry County up to Paulding County to the cow farm, and instead of having a cross tether, if it was just tethered to the attached in some way to the back, I realize that is not as possibly safe for the animal, but it appears to satisfy your need to make sure the animal stays within the space and doesn't cause additional problems for the the cars around you?
First of all, what cross tethering was added, and the bill would specifically, it's just about 285. So going to Henry County, to Paulding County would not make it applicable. So once you leave the inner loop of 285, you can tether your animal however you want to, or not tether your animal however you want to. The cross tethering was just like if you're going to Cobb County. So you go outside of Cobb, go outside of 285 into Cobb. It's just the minute you go out of 285 on 85 going north, then you can tether however you want to. But around the perimeter, the cross tether was just to make sure that if the dog's going to fly out of the car, that it's not going to drag on the side of the vehicle and somebody's still going to try to avoid it. This was just to make it secure. You know what I mean? So originally it was just tethered, and somebody said, well, if you don't hold the animal inside the vehicle, then it's going to bounce out, and you're going to be dragging it either beside or behind the truck. You know what?
Dominic, you got a question? All right, who is 10? Don't come up with no parcel. Put this
50 plus 1.
That was, don't blame me, that was Representative Turner. At the proper time, I'd like to make a motion. I'm basically to a point, I understand where you're trying to go to, and see, I don't live in 285 either. See, because we put ours on the back of the truck and take them where they need to go. We don't, that's not what we do. But in as much as it's, it's a town bill, it's kind of for y'all town folks. If that's the way y'all want to do it, then Mr. Chairman, at the proper time, I'd like to make a motion.
I got one question right here. Who's 6? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had a couple questions. Is this a big problem? I know I'm from Raven County. We live in the northeast Georgia mountains. People got in their trucks all the time, dogs, going around the mountains on these windy roads. I've never seen any problem with this in my 14 years of driving on the highways. Is this a big problem, or is this the one sort of anomaly that we're looking at here that we're going to affect all millions of people here in the metro area and then fine them if they don't abide by the law and have a cage or tether their animal? I'm just curious because I see this happen all the time where I'm from, and I've never seen an accident or anything like that.
Animal object collisions are a larger issue than what you would imagine. But to differentiate between hitting a deer and hitting something off of the back of a pickup truck is where the stats kind of break down. So what I can tell you is that if you look at some of the incidences, let me find my data. The crash data suggests that there's like 1 out of, I don't want to misquote myself, so to just answer your question, yes, it is significant, and I don't have the accident data right now. Mostly you see people hitting deers.
Yeah, we hit a lot of deers up in Raven County. But this has to do with specifically with you're talking about just the animals in the back of pickup trucks.
Yes, in the metropolitan area.
In the metropolitan area. I guess my concern is that it just seems like a overreach of us to do this when we have just there's really no examples I've ever seen personally. And I've seen many, many animals back in pickup trucks.
I'm from West Virginia originally, and so we tote our animals in the back of trucks. But it's different when you live in an area where you have 2 million people driving cars every day. So one little concern can be magnified to create a huge, huge issue. So I would tell you that I was driving around with my phone, taking photos, but then I would be guilty of distracted driving. So I will say that there for a while I was taking some pictures because unsecured loads, you know, people that go to Home Depot put their wood on the top of their cars and then get on the freeway and try to tie it down with a piece of twine and go 80 miles an hour, or mattresses. You ever seen mattresses? So dogs are in the same classification as anything that's not secured on your truck or on your vehicle. I know it doesn't seem like a very serious issue until you are on 285.
All right, Rick.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just quickly, so in doing this, we would now prosecute with a civil fine somebody who's in the dogs got in the Chattahoochee River and they put it at the back of their truck to get home. We'd also, if Rick Jaspers is going to see his daughter in Perry, he's got Ranger in the back of his truck driving through Atlanta and never heard about this bill, I would be in a gotcha situation. And, you know, in where we're staying at right now, the only people that have pickup trucks in that whole thing is legislators from all around the state. And, you know, I hate to say, I mean, but, Mr. Chairman, it's one of these bills that, you know, it might happen occasionally, but it's going to be a lot of gotchas out there.
And this does say animal, so if I got my goat in the back of the truck, I got to tie him, right?
That's right.
But is anybody in the audience have any comments? Any? Yes, ma'am.
I live in the metro Atlanta area as well. And I grew up in a rural area and we used to carry our dogs in the back. But it is quite frightful to be on the highway here. I drive on 85 and 285 almost every day. And it's any unsecured loan, but when you see a dog, it's distracting before there's a problem. Because if you're going at a high rate of speed, maybe you're not, but I'm concerned for the dog immediately. So it's already kind of distracting, and people do tend to give a little bit away for that. I don't know that this is a solution, but it is a problem at a high rate of speed on the highway when you see unsecured animals. And sir, I think you should also share your goat for the sake of the goat.
See, when I first read this bill and I signed it with Carla, I was thinking nobody cares about the dog. They worried about who you fixing to run into when the dog falls out of the truck. Is what when you swerve.
They're different inside the perimeter. Different values on different.
Okay.
Yeah, this is not about trying to get anybody. I'm not saying any of the legislators that bring their pets here.
Winfred, you making a motion?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. And listen, it's $15. That's what we're talking about. Basically, it's not a whole lot of money. We have different, you said values. We have different values outside of 285 than they have in 285. We do. But this seemed like it might be one of their values. I mean, and you say who did it, she had the experience with it. So that's 1 out of 20 people here in this room. And if a dog get out on 285 now, yeah, you know, it's not like we gonna swerve and, you know, thanks to DOT, we won't hit the pine trees anymore. But if it gets out on 285, boys, it's gonna be something real serious. So, yeah, absolutely. So in the, having said that, I would move that this bill do pass and hope that the members of the committee feel likewise.
Is there a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? No. Good God. Raise your hand up.
It's a dog beat for Atlanta.
All in favor of Winfred's motion, raise your hand.
gonna vote for this. I say put the dog in the car when you get, before you get to 285, and then you'll be all right.
What you got? 7. All opposed to Winfrey motion, raise your hand.
I'm gonna put it on Facebook this evening. Well, the chairman was the second signer.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes.